Good morning from our cafe, and welcome back to 10-Minute English Cafe. It is Wednesday, August 19th, 2026, and our first story turns frozen watermelon into a cold dessert.
Happy Wednesday! A frozen watermelon dessert makes every iced drink on this cafe table look as if it needs a more exciting plan.
The method begins with a prepared watermelon that stays in the freezer overnight before any liquid is added.
Overnight is the hard part for me. I would open the freezer every hour, achieve nothing, and still feel involved. Your checking would not speed it up, but that wait brings us to today's keyword, ready, spelled R-E-A-D-Y. I like it. It feels calm and practical, like a small green light instead of a dramatic starting bell. In the dessert story, the fruit needs its overnight freeze before the scraping can begin. My patience might not be ready, but my spoon would be waiting by the freezer door. Our second story asks whether strong numbers are enough to make people feel ready to celebrate. That sounds like opening a good message and then noticing one difficult sentence at the bottom. Cisco reported large AI infrastructure orders and revenue guidance, while its shares fell amid concerns about margins. So the business table has coffee, good news, and one number making everybody sit up straighter. Finally, Rhossi, a rescued sea turtle, has reached Houston Zoo for checks before a planned release. That kind of ready matters most. I want the checklist to be careful, even if my hopeful side wants to rush ahead. If you are new here, we turn real news into natural English conversation that you can follow over coffee. We keep the language useful and the table friendly, even when the numbers arrive before the second sip. If that helps your listening practice, please subscribe and spend the next 10 minutes with us. My coffee is ready, my curiosity is ready, and I promise to leave the freezer closed. Let's begin. Our first news item is a social media watermelon dessert method that starts with freezing a prepared watermelon overnight. That is wonderfully direct. My usual dessert plan has more cupboard doors, more bowls, and at least one moment of forgetting what I was doing.
Your shorter kitchen route fits this one. After the overnight wait, you add milk, cream, or a dairy-free alternative and scrape the frozen fruit into the liquid.
Then my first question changes from where is the ice cream to how fast can I find a spoon?
Because fruit is the main base and the dairy is minimal, the result is technically closer to sherbet than to ice cream.
I can accept that. If the bowl is cold, fruity, and waiting for me, I will not argue with its official category.
And the action is unusually easy to picture. Pour the liquid in, then scrape the frozen fruit into it.
The word scrape makes the process feel satisfyingly hands-on. No button gets all the fun this time.
The spoon moves across the frozen fruit and brings small pieces into the liquid.
That sounds like the rare kitchen task where a slightly messy motion is actually the entire point.
Your messy motion enthusiasm is safe here, as long as we keep the sequence clear. Prepare, freeze overnight, add liquid, and scrape.
The sequence is simple enough to remember, but the overnight wait would still test me more than the scraping.
You could describe that wait naturally by saying, "The watermelon is not ready yet," without making the sentence complicated.
I would need that sentence on the freezer door, preferably beside another note saying, opening this again will not help.
That note understands you very well. Once the overnight freeze is complete, the method can move to the liquid and scraping step.
I also like that the dairy-free alternative is part of the same basic path, not treated like a completely different dessert.
Right. The permitted liquids differ, but the central idea stays the same. Frozen watermelon is scraped into the chosen liquid.
So the fruit does the leading, the liquid supports it, and my only role is to wait without conducting hourly inspections.
That fruit first balance is also why sherbet is the more accurate comparison here than conventional ice cream.
Fair enough. I came for a cold watermelon treat, and I leave with better patience and a more accurate dessert word.
Cisco said its FY 2026 AI infrastructure orders reached $9.3 billion.
$9.3 billion is the kind of number that makes me reach for the good news folder first.
I understand that first reaction, yet Cisco shares fell about 9% amid margin concerns, despite strong results.
My brain wants one clean label, but this story hands me two folders. Demand looks strong, and do not ignore the margins.
The other large figure is Cisco's revenue guidance for fiscal 2027, $7.5 billion.
So they belong to different fiscal years and describe different things. My mental spreadsheet needs two separate rows.
And then comes the market reaction. Even with strong results, the share price fell about 9% amid margin concerns.
9% is not a quiet little footnote. It is the number in the room that pulls every chair toward it.
Your chair image captures the attention shift. Still, the strong demand remains part of what Wall Street is weighing.
That is the difficult part. I cannot throw away the good folder just because the red number is louder.
Nor can we ignore lower profitability just because the orders sound impressive. Both sides belong in the same conversation.
This is like reading a work update with great momentum at the top and watch the budget near the bottom.
That everyday comparison fits the mixed reaction, as long as we keep Cisco's actual picture to demand and profitability.
Then my honest response is, those orders are huge, but I'm not ready to call the whole picture easy.
That's careful language. You're recognizing the $9.3 billion without pretending the roughly 9% fall disappeared.
I also notice how one word changes the mood. Despite lets strong results and a share drop sit in one sentence.
Yes, and here the contrast is factual. Strong results were present, while margin concerns and the share decline were present too.
My cafe version would be a beautiful cake with a bill beside it. I can admire one and still study the other.
I can see that exact pause at our table. Wall Street's task is similarly two-sided, weigh strong demand against lower profitability.
Then the useful habit is not rushing toward good or bad. It's staying with both numbers long enough to hear the full tension.
A Kemp's Ridley turtle named Rhossi, rescued in Wales, has arrived at Houston Zoo for final checks.
Reaching the final check stage already feels hopeful. I am glad the careful part comes before any celebration.
That care matters because a planned release near Padre Island depends on whether those checks find Rhossi suitable.
My hopeful side wants to cheer at planned release, but the careful side of me is glad the final checks come first.
That balance matters here. Rhossi's transfer was about 5,000 miles before the turtle reached Houston Zoo. 5,000 miles makes my longest travel day feel like a trip from the cafe table to the pastry case. And after that transfer, the next step is not automatic. CT, X-ray, and blood tests are being used to determine release suitability. That is a serious checklist. I'm picturing 3 boxes that all deserve calm attention, not a hopeful hand ticking them too early. Your unticked box image is right for the moment. The planned destination is near Padre Island, but suitability still has to be determined.
I like the word planned there. It holds the hope without pretending the release has already happened.
That is a good way to frame it. Arrival is complete, while the planned release remains ahead.
The story has movement, but it also has a pause. I find that pause reassuring, even though I want the happy next step.
Your reassurance comes from the process being careful. The tests are there specifically to determine release suitability.
Then I'll keep my imaginary celebration small for now. One quiet coffee cup salute, no giant party banner.
A quiet salute suits the facts. We can recognize the 5,000-mile transfer without turning a planned release into a completed one.
And we can say Rhossi is nearly at the next step, while leaving room for the checks to answer the important question.
Yes, the careful phrasing is that the release is planned, subject to what the tests determine.
That makes the ending hopeful but not rushed, which is harder than simply jumping to the nicest possible sentence.
It is also why today's keyword fits so well. Ready is not always a feeling. Sometimes it's a condition that must be checked.
I'll remember that. My coffee can be ready by smell, but a 5,000-mile traveler deserves a much better checklist.
Before we leave the cafe, which story gave the word ready the clearest meaning for you today?
Rossi's story did. It showed me that hope can be present while a careful decision is still unfinished.
In our first story, a prepared watermelon had to freeze overnight before liquid was added and the scraping began.
That was readiness measured by patience, although my spoon tried very hard to vote for an early start.
Now it is your turn. Which story made ready feel most useful to you today and why?
Option A is the frozen watermelon dessert and its overnight wait.
Option B is Cisco's strong AI numbers and the mixed market reaction.
Option C is Rossi's final checks before the planned release.
Tell us in the comments. Any language is welcome, and an A, B, or C with an emoji is fine too.
I choose C because being hopeful and being ready are not always the same thing.
Take today's word with you. Ready means the next step can begin, whether preparation, judgment, or careful checks get you there. Please like and subscribe if this conversation helped your English.
Have a good Wednesday. May your coffee be ready now, your dessert be ready later, and your decisions get the time they need.